Elder Uchtdorf said, "The desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. It doesn't matter your education, your ability, your background, or your talent. We each have an inherent desire to create something that has not existed before. It is this that I want to share with you is what I use to satisfy my inherent yearning to create. I love to sew, and I have been sewing since I was young. This started as a desire to create clothing for my Barbies, and much to my mother's horror, at one point, I attempted to make myself a halter top, and all I can say is it was the 70s and it was not good. When I was 12, my grandmother started teaching me to sew, and she would take me to her home, and I would spend a week there. I started out learning how to sew clothing, and I loved it and awakened a passion that has not dimmed since. I have, in the last few years, discovered quilting, which I enjoy also very much, and that is what I wanted to share with you today. When you first look at a quilt, it can be a little overwhelming, and you think, I can't do that. But quilting, as with most things, is actually done in steps, and a quilt is actually a bunch of squares put together for the whole. It's kind of a gestalt, where the pieces put together is something different. And what we are going to do today is a log cabin quilt. A log cabin quilt is made up entirely of 2.5-inch strips of fabric sewn together. The first thing that you are going to do when you are going to make a quilt is you're going to decide what is your color scheme. You're going to go to the fabric store, and you can go through and look through all the bolts of fabric and pick things out and take it up to the counter, have it cut, and come home and cut your own 2.5-inch strips. Or there are lots of kits out there. These strips happen to come from a kit called a jelly roll, and the 2.5-inch strips are already cut for you, and there is about 45 strips in there in all color coordinated fabrics. So that part is done. One of the other things that I found that I had is these kits with 5-inch squares. So I took the 5-inch squares and I cut 1 1/4 for the purpose of our quilt today, so that I started out with a 2.5-inch square. And then I picked one of my colors and started sewing the fabric right onto my 2.5-inch square. So I put a square and then a strip underneath, so that what we come up with is here, where you can see our first square and the next strip. The next thing you would do is pick another color, and you're going to sew a piece here and then one here. You can change colors again and go here and here, and you'll keep going in that method until you end up with a quilt square that looks something like this. And you make as many quilt squares for the desired size of the quilt that you want to create. If you're going to create a doll quilt, you might want only 2 quilt squares. If you're going to make a quilt for a baby, you might want 9 quilt squares. If you're going to do a throw to go on the back of your couch, you might want 16 quilt squares. Once you get your number of quilt squares created, you're going to take and you're going to put them on the floor, and you're going to move them around and try and create a design that you like before you sew them together. Once you get that design that you like, you're going to just sew your quilt squares together, and you then have a quilt top. After you have your quilt top, the next step, you're going to take your quilt top, and underneath that, you're going to put batting. That's that fluffy stuff in the quilt. And then there's going to be another fabric underneath that you're backing. And from there, that's where you take it and sew those 3 layers together, and that's your actual quilting. You can do that in your sewing machine yourself. You can do that by hand. I'm sure that everybody has seen quilting racks somewhere stored in the relief study closet. Or you can actually go to the fabric store and get the phone number of somebody who has a really fancy quilting machine and pay them to quilt it for you. They'll return that to you, and the only thing you have left to do is to put a binding on the edge. And then you have your quilt, and you're done, and not too bad. I would like to finish by again quoting Elder Uchtdorf when he said, "What you create doesn't have to be perfect. Don't let the fear of failure stop you." So I hope from this demonstration that you will be have the desire to create and to try something new. Thank you.